Okay, so I hope this one goes better. Apparently I set up the other one wrong. Sorry about that. So a friendly reminder is that I don't start class until 8:20, and then you have from 7:50 to 8:20 to get signed in and get situated and whatever. So I'm just here to answer questions. So I am looking at the today's meet. Hey Chelsea.
Hi.
Happy to see you. How are things going? You are being taped, so just be aware of that.
Oh, totally fine. Welcome to my laundry room.
Excellent. Welcome to my nerd cave. I got nerdy boxes and a 3D printer and a Mac.
Way cooler than my steamer.
Oh my gosh, I miss my steamer so much. Ours broke. I'm jealous. So how are things going? Tell me about your situation.
Super stressful right now. It's homecoming week, and I'm the pep and cheer advisor.
Oh yeah.
So I have no life.
Okay. So the agenda items this week are not that important. Let me tell you, the only thing that I need you to do on the agenda this week is there's one activity to do a digital citizenship presentation collaboratively.
Okay.
Because that's a collaborative activity. That's the only, you can postpone the rest of it, okay?
Awesome. Yeah, so it's homecoming week, and I have a funeral that I'm giving the eulogy at on Saturday.
All right.
So I'm kind of super stressed. Hey.
Hi.
Hey, how are you doing? So we're just, I'm just answering questions and just hang out, talking, whatever you want, casual. And I'm trying to check the today's meet. And then we'll get started at 8:20. So you guys want to work on your blog post if you just want to chat.
Perfect.
So the other agendas, are you feeling like they're going okay? Is there any of them that are the things that are particularly confusing or something I can go over?
Not especially. I was having problems. The Clovis Unified lesson plan template that they make me do is a little bit different than the one you posted.
Mine's ridiculous.
Yeah. So I've had trouble like trying to get it all to mesh. So I kind of completely threw out my Clovis Unified ones, and there's this really cool lesson plan that I've been wanting to do, but they'll never let me do it because it involves ice cream and soda, God forbid.
Wait a minute, why can't you do that? Where are you teaching at?
Ag.
Where?
The Clovis East.
And wait, who doesn't let you do? Okay, I taught at Clovis High for 13 years.
They basically said they don't support me doing a lab that involves orange sherbet and ginger ale.
Why?
Because I was going to let the kids eat it.
Why? I don't understand the problem, because when I taught in Clovis, that would have been fine. In fact,
they're not allowed to sell candy. They're not allowed to give it out.
What?
I figured I'd send out a permission slip. Whoever brought it back, great, they can eat theirs. Not, they I don't know.
Okay, Chelsea, I'm going to give you some advice. You ready for it?
Yeah.
Don't ask for permission to do stuff.
Okay. I just didn't want to get in trouble because Ken Diaz is like the god in the ag department. He's been there 30 years.
That's true. I know him.
He's my mentor teacher.
Okay.
So I didn't want to get him angry, so I went to him. I was like, hey, I found this idea. I really want to do it. Can I do it? It's about aquifers. And he was like, yeah, no, you should probably just not.
So what grade level is that for?
Well, I was hoping to be able to do it for my freshmen. It's an intro to ag class, and they're all really focused. I have them doing like ag current events every week. So they'll all keep bringing me stuff on the drought, obviously.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring something in to kind of support what they're doing in their current events.
So I know an 8th grade teacher that probably would let you come in and do this sample lesson if you could ever get a day away that you have to go do observation.
Uh-huh.
So let me know. I can hook that up so you could do the lesson.
That would be awesome. At Clovis East?
No, it's at a charter school where my kids go.
Okay.
Cool, and I bet you that if you wanted to come in and do a demo lesson with some 8th graders, she'd probably like. I could probably get this hooked up.
Okay, that would be awesome.
And it's out there, a lot of places.
It's really fun. It's about, I mean, the San Joaquin Aquifer. So it's all local. And then who doesn't like orange sherbet in the afternoon? Yeah. I'm in.
So let me figure out if you can get a day. Like, does your stuff require that you could do observations or something in another class?
Yes and no. They're kind of letting me do it. Dr. Akhavan is kind of letting me roll with it. She's like, just go, do your thing. So, I
love Dr. Akhavan, though. She's amazing.
Yeah.
And I just want to remind you, this is taped. So I'm not saying that just because it is taped, but before you might say something about somebody.
No, she's awesome. She's like, roll with it, do your thing, let me know if you need anything.
Okay, so when I did my student teaching, which I did under an internship, so it wasn't really student teaching as much as whatever. You know, I had to get some paperwork sometimes. Let's see. Hold on, somebody today's meeting. So I was telling them they got to refresh the agenda page. They have a new link. Oh my gosh, Dr. Ackerman's super cool. In fact, we were talking about her in my face-to-face class, and she has to have her ears burning right now. So anyway, and when I had to do it, I also had to do some observation hours. Like that was part of, like I had bits of days and other stuff where I had days that I specifically was supposed to take the day off to go observe other classes.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to see what this 8th grade teacher is doing and then do a demo lesson, if you can work that in, talk to Nancy.
Okay.
He's so cool. So let's start with that. Okay. Go talk to Nancy and say, can you make a requirement that I'm supposed to
do this? Okay. Perfect.
And then if you want to do it at the school, I'm almost certain that I could hook it up.
That would be awesome. Because it's a really cool thing, and it's fun, and it kind of ties everything from CCs and conversion measurement to local San Joaquin Valley to pollution and kind of all of it into one lesson. And I love it, and I really want to do it. I actually did it on my little sisters. I made them do it because what are 12-year-old little sisters for? And they loved it.
I'm excited about it, and I'd like to help you to do it. The answer to all of life's problems is tenure.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're a science teacher, it's not like there's a million science teachers to replace you. So, right. Do you know Monica Carter at Clovis High?
Mm-hmm.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
She's so nice. So if you ever want advice, she likes to set things on fire. So I would highly recommend you make an appointment to go hang out with her at Clovis High, like after school. Obviously not this week, but I mean she's so nice. So just look her up and send her an email and ask her if you can hang out with her either after school or for one day to observe or whatever, and then get her advice about the labs like that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Give you really good advice, and she's in the know, and a little bit of a rebel, but in a way where she's so awesome that nobody's going to tell her not to.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my advice. Okay, so for the lesson plan template, it's ridiculous. You should never use it again in your whole life.
Okay, thank God.
Somebody emailed me the other day. It's like, Miss Kim, I'm teaching somewhere, and your lesson plan template's the only one that's ever made sense to me. Can I have it? And I'm like, sure. It's so ridiculous. So what happened was Dr. Nelson and I sat down and brainstormed all the things that you might think about for a modern lesson. And even, it's kind of dated. I'd probably want to do this again because there's new stuff that I feel like with Common Core and whatnot that I now understand that I didn't when I first made it. But anyway, we brainstormed this giant list. And then I made a Google form that just did all of it. And then Dr. Nelson and I were supposed to get together and clean it up and decide what we wanted to do. We never did.
Right.
it's just lived. Like I've been using it for, I don't know, 3, 4 years, and it's just lived as this giant beast. But like when I get feedback from students, I always ask for feedback from students all the time. You know, at first they're, of course, it's ridiculous, but then everyone said it was really helpful because it's got, it does. I think it's a good activity to do once.
Yes.
I would never do it again. So the next lesson plan activity gives you the option to use that lesson plan template or whatever you can find on the internet or your district uses or whatever.
Okay.
So, but what I like about mine is it requires you to list DOK levels and SAMR levels and things that I know are not on your...
Exactly, and that's what I was struggling with because I've never even taught before until I was just thrown into this position, was 5 weeks ago now. I had to text one of my girlfriends who's in 8th grade at Rayburn. I was like, what's a DOK? I have no idea. None.
I'm a little hesitant to, like, at some point we're going to talk DOK. In fact, I want to do it kind of early on. So do you want to talk about it now or do you want to wait?
You can wait. It's okay. She gave me just like the, hey, I'm in the middle of class, this is your answer version.
Okay.
So I got it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to try and get some more. I'm going to try and make it clear for you if I can.
Okay. Perfect.
Well, I won't. I made a bunch of videos you can watch in your own time. Okay, tell me the dog's name again.
Aspen. Aspen, sit down. Come on. He's a snuggler. He just wants to be on top of me at all times.
Great.
Luckily, being in the ag class, he gets to come.
That's so cool.
He comes to class and he hangs out. He's 10 years old. My fiance actually has epilepsy, so he is a certified service animal. And he has mommy issues, which we accept, huh? Yeah. He likes to sit on my lap during all classes. Sometimes on the desk. He's like a cat.
He'll come home at some point, and some of them might try and sit on my lap. We have church on Wednesday night, so nobody's here. So it's pretty quiet. I have 5 kids. It's never quiet.
It's almost too quiet at this point.
Right? So my kids are 11, 10, 8, 5, and 3, so really, not quiet.
Yeah, no, not quiet. I've had a 15-year-old, 12-year-old, and 11-year-olds for the last month.
Oh, why?
My parents are going through that midlife crisis. They don't really want to be parents anymore kind of thing. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. So I'm just like, hey, here's the guest room, snuggle up. But teenage girls are a whole new breed. I think I'd like to switch to raising Aspen.
For 14 years.
Yeah.
Trust me, I know.
Yeah.
Hey, Nicholas, thanks for joining us. I'm just answering. We get started at 8:20, so I'm just answering questions and hanging out. I'm also supposed to be replying on the hashtag. Uh-oh. Wait. We'll start 8:20, but I'll answer any questions or just shoot the breeze with you if you want. All right, so part of tonight's assignment is to tweet out learning objectives and to reply with DOK levels. So I'm checking work right now. If you want to check the CI149 hashtag, but you really should be setting up your blog. Uh-oh, I hear somebody. Hey, Nixon, you want to come say hi? You've been asleep downstairs? By yourself? Seriously? Yeah. Did Dad know that he left you? Well, Mom. Okay. I'm teaching him. Wait, I'm teaching class right now. Did you guys, have you been here the whole time? In the church? Maybe. I didn't sleep. All right, guys, we're not going to debate this because I have a class right now. Maybe.
So should we be creating a different page for every blog post?
Should you be creating a what?
A different page for every blog post?
Post. So what you would do is you would click on post, or excuse me, you click on blog on the left side, and if you set it up correctly, it should say new post. So each week you would choose a new post. If you want to put your link into the chat here in the Hangout, I'll take a look at it. Right. So you guys should be just getting your blog post set up. If you want to take collaborative notes, go ahead and do that. Oh, there's your link. Okay, cool. Is it okay if I screencast it? Or, yeah. You're on mute, so I'm just going to assume it's okay.
Yeah, sorry. It's good.
Okay. Um, okay, so yeah, this is not quite set up correctly. Can you click on the blue link in the upper right-hand corner and add akeeler@mail.fresnostate.edu? That's what I'm logged in as right now. And add me as owner.
Okay, should be good now.
Okay, I'm gonna refresh. There we go, perfect. Okay, so on this home page, I'm gonna click the pencil up at the top. And so you don't have to put anything on there right now, but eventually you wanna make that look nice. I'm gonna go here to layout, and I'm gonna choose the second, well, actually just regular 2-column layout's fine. So like info about you, and then you need a picture of you and Aspen. So, you know, I do absolutely have students that when they go in for a job interview, they show their digital portfolio. In fact, I've got some stories of students who were hired because of their digital portfolio, because schools are really looking for teachers who know how to use technology. Like when they hire a new teacher, they don't want to train them. They expect new teachers to know how to do it. And so just, I guarantee you this is going to be impressive to show off what you've learned. So when they ask you, like, do you know how to do tech? How are you going to use tech? And you're like, let me show you. You can pull this up. So you really want your home page to be something that says, I fit in here. So, you know, a nice picture of you that, like, I want this person on my staff. And then, you know, this is some information about me. I have a degree in ag or science, and I enjoy making soda rockets on the weekends, you know, whatever. Try to make it look like I'm somebody that would fit in. And you don't have to. Don't put anything on the internet you feel uncomfortable with. But just a suggestion is to really kind of make this your home page for them to feel like we want to hire her. Like she looks like she fits in. So on the left-hand side, it should say blog, and it doesn't say that. It says week 2. So where you made a mistake is you actually, when you created a page the first time, you wanted to call it blog, and you wanted to do announcement style. So I'm going to go ahead and create that for you. And now it says new post. So I'm going to click new post, and I'm going to week 01, notes, enter, reflection, enter, save. Now when I want to make week 2, which I know you already have it, but it's not on the blog page. I have to actually click on blog. So I'm going to click on blog. I'm going to click new post. Week 02. Notes. Reflection. Notice I push enter after the reflection also. That's a habit that I get into when I even start a text document, because it just gives me room to do stuff. I click back on blog, because notice there's no button that says new post.
Right.
Click back on blog. Come on, baby. And then I click new post. So don't do this right now, but when you're done with your homecoming week, stress yourself out a little bit by showing some evidence. Now your early stuff, it's totally okay for it to look bad.
Okay.
And like bad. But I'm looking for growth. But you're definitely supposed to have a reflection for week 4.
Okay.
Not anymore. My daughter Bacon is spirited. Okay. Then I'm going to click back on blog. Now ready for this week, new post. Okay, So you should have a Google Doc that you're taking notes in. And the Google Doc shows your evidence of agenda.
Yes.
You're taking screenshots and just work samples and whatever, and you're putting it in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would go Insert, Drive, Document. And hopefully your notes document is right here and you can just click on it, or you might search for it in the search box. If I have anything that says notes, I don't. Okay, so whatever. So that's what you would do, is you'd stick it in there.
Okay.
And then hit save. So now you're able to edit that. We can copy and paste. Let's stay on this page. We can copy and paste. Oh, you don't have anything for week 2 anyway. So I'm going to click the little settings wheel and just choose delete page.
Perfect.
All right, now what you want to have also, though, is a page for any big assignments or like quests that we don't do on the agenda. So if you do quests not from the agenda, but just stuff you've explored, then you would make a page for those. So in that case, you click the piece of paper icon. Like today we're doing individual lesson plan. And I'm going to leave all the defaults. Okay, so from there, now I always like to push return like a bunch of times so that this way I can write reflection down here, because you're going to do a reflection on everything. That's all. Your lesson plan's not going to be good. Lesson planning is crazy hard. It's like crazy, crazy hard. So don't expect it to be good. It's a first attempt. It's like, oh, I didn't realize I had to think about kids with disabilities. Of course you do. When you design a lesson, you do have kids in your class with unique needs. And you're going to have to consider that. So anyway, I'm just trying to get, your lesson plan, your first lesson plan is about thinking about stuff that you might not think about and challenging yourself. It's not about having a really good lesson. Now here, though, I go Insert, Drive, Document, and you're going to find your lesson plan. Come on, baby, load. So I'll just put this one in here for a second, and then I'll delete it. So you find your lesson plan, hit select, you hit save, and it goes in as a blob. It's supposed to. But when you hit save, it's going to turn into the lesson plan. So you should have your lesson plan, and then underneath it, a spot for your reflection. I'm going to delete that out. So when I go to delete it, I actually hit the pencil, and then I'm going to, this little toolbar comes up when I click on it, and I can remove it. So I'm going to hit save. So insert your own lesson plan, okay?
Perfect, perfect.
And then when I click back here on week 5, notice at the end of the URL it says week 5. This is what you turn into the sign-in today.
Gotcha.
So what I want you to do right now is to make week 6 right now. You should always make it a week in advance. So all it says is notes and reflection. It's just ready to get started next week.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I was confused. I was trying to make each week a different block. It wasn't making sense to me.
Okay, so did you make week 6? I'm just going to get rid of that and stop the screen share. Hey, shout out to Brianna. Thanks, Brianna. Good to be in a group where you have people to go with. So, what I do in my face-to-face class is they go through the agenda just like you guys do, and it's basically the same agenda. I try to move things around so that the top stuff is the collaborative stuff, so that we can do that, and then you can do the rest of it individually. So anyway, I think it's a good idea to meet in groups if you can. So for those of you who are not with the Porterville group, if you can meet up with somebody else, that would be good. You know, obviously you don't have to. So Nicholas, are you able to paste the link to your blog into this chat, the video chat, so I can click on it? Okay. So I'm just going to go through the agenda items real quick to make sure everybody's good. So hopefully you've signed in. And so if you make sure you expand each of the things that expand. Is anyone having trouble with having collaborative notes documents? Do you have people to collaborate with? Is this something I need to help you set up better? So I'd like to see people typing in today's meet. Especially my Porterville peeps, where I can't see you. If everyone can show me you're there, say hi. Okay, so good collaborative notes. You gotta remember there's like a 1 to 2 minute lag from the video, like the live to watching the video, there's a lag. Okay, so, super. Let me know if you have issues with the blog post. It's really hard to really mess this up. Make sure that you have your evidence of doing the agenda every week on your notes document. So you should have a Google Doc every week that you have screenshots and work samples and just notes. You should have that every week. And then the most important thing to me is that you have a really good reflection. And I don't even care. All the agenda items, you could do them all wrong, and I don't care. In fact, you know, depending on your level of tech, if you're really kind of low tech and you're struggling and like this is just too much, I don't want anyone crying and overly stressing. Like, do what's reasonable, and then maybe just do a tiny bit more than that just to challenge yourself. But honestly, I don't care if you fail, like you tried and it doesn't work. You write a note, like I tried it and this is what happened, and it blew up, and I'm like, ah! It's okay to tell me you can't do something, but that you tried it. So, but what I really want to know, all that matters is that you use critical thinking to think about, I want you to have in your mind what your future class looks like. And how are you going to treat your students? What are your rules? How are you going to approach situations? What kind of activities are you going to do? I want you to have specific ideas. When I read your reflection, I want to feel like I know what your class is going to look like. You should not use vague things like, Google Sheets is awesome. I'm going to do this with my kids, and they're going to like it. That's not critical thinking. It doesn't even say very much. Like, what if you go into a job interview and you say that, you're not getting that job. You have a specific idea. So that's what I want to see in your reflection. Does anyone have how about groups? Agenda item number 2. How are we doing on, let me click on this link. Okay, so I've got Hugo and Jose. Ivan's not in this group anymore. I'll take him out. So I'm in the number 15 document. So group 1 is Luis, Jorge, Chelsea, and Sophie. And so you guys, I have several group projects, and one of the group projects this week is a digital citizenship presentation. You're going to work with those people. So Chelsea, you don't have your email address and phone number on the spreadsheet, which don't feel pressured to put it on there if you don't want to give that out publicly. If you want to make sure you connect with the other people in the group, you guys make arrangements. So next week, you're going to meet with those people to talk about your project. Hi, Jose, who doesn't look like Jose.
Hello.
Uh-oh. You're not talking.
Should show her that we're all here.
Oh, we're all here.
I was lamenting about this before. Like, I need a better, like, you know, in face-to-face, I'm not doing much different because people are still going on the agendas, but I'm walking around and I'm, like, talking and I see people. And I got to figure out how to do that.
You guys turn the volume down on that one.
Oh, yeah, just right.
Well, we're just using this as like a microphone so we can reply to you if we need something.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but for now.
I'm trying to figure out how I can work with you guys better. So please send me some ideas. Okay, so I need somebody from group 2 to join group 3. So it's either Brianna, Bonnie, Nicholas, Jose, Christina. I have too many people. I only have 2 people in group 3, so I need somebody in group 2 to jump ship. Please. So there are, I think, 3 group projects. So there's this digital citizenship activity for this week, and then the collaborative lesson plan, and the video project. So there's 3 projects that you do. Thanks, Jose.
So we're in a group, right? So we're all in a group? All the Porterville is in a group?
I don't know. Did you sign up that way? So group 2 is Brianna, Bonnie, Nicholas, and Christina.
Group 2 and 3 is mostly us.
Okay.
And group 3 is Jose, Hugo, and Jose. Jose Square.
Okay, let's go ahead and start.
Go.
Does that work out?
EA and then
I'm sorry, what?
EA and then
Does that put the Porterville people together?
Yeah, that's mostly us.
2 and 3 are us.
2 and 3 are us.
Okay. So is anybody in 2 and 3 not Porterville?
So we double check.
I'm trying to find it.
Okay, cool.
Oh, I'm fine. I think I got all the blog. Now I just need to go through and edit them.
Yeah.
Okay.
What you need to do in your body is you're going to put notes really big.
Let's just say I'm going to start with this one. I'll start editing it. Edit.
Well, Chelsea, I think you signed into today's as mod.
Right?
So if you refresh today's page, it'll let you put your name in again.
So on every page there has to be this. In her
I
instructions.
really like you guys.
Okay.
I think on the today's meet, I think it's Chelsea.
Oh, I see.
I think you're in as
We just drop our name file.
It's our group.
Just go to add file.
I'm already there, look.
Got it.
No, you're group 2, not 3.
Oh.
He's going to have to help us.
how many Porterville people are there? Wait a minute. How many Porterville people are there?
We have 8.
What's up?
Okay, so let's do 2 groups of 4 of the Porterville people.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll move.
Because I want you guys to do linked learning projects for your project. I want it to be on linked.
So we can all listen through here.
Okay, so
So
we're
get
good.
louder. Or whoever's computer that is.
well, I-
Just turn off the speaker.
Do you know how to do that? I don't know how to.
You can turn off the speaker, not the microphone, right? They're 2 separate?
Yeah. Like if you turn off.
Like I
Go
can do guys. And then you just unmute it when you want to say
Your
something.
microphone.
Okay,
The
she
volume.
says we can mute ourselves until we need to do something.
Oh wait, that didn't work.
No.
Gotcha.
Okay, fine. Go.
Are the groups?
There it is. What if we turned off the speakers? Yes.
I want to modify the digital citizenship lesson a little bit because we only have 2 rounds.
Alright.
So here's what I'm thinking.
That's really.
Love you, but okay. So Porterville, I want you to talk to me. So just unmute it when you're ready, okay? Also, if you have 2 hangouts in the same room, like Nicholas says he's got one for Porterville and one for himself. it gets very angry. It does not like to have two Hangouts in the same room. So you have to like mute your mic and speakers on one of them. For the digital citizenship presentation, there's like 5 groups, and we only have 3. So we could get creative, but I really don't want to make you do extra work. So what I'll do is whatever 2 topics don't get covered, then you'll just do them from one of the other classes, because you'll want to give peer feedback on the topics that you didn't do. So I think we'll just do that, if that's okay with you guys. That'll keep it simple. Okay, so next week is virtual class, so we'll have no video next week. And so you guys can arrange to meet whenever, wherever you want. So I'll try and get the directions up early so that you can pick. So I mean, I don't know that this is the best time for you guys to do that. So you're going to do a collaborative activity. So you guys either want to be in the same place at the same time, or you want to be like doing you set up your own Google Hangout video with your group members. So Porterville people, that's going to be the easiest to coordinate. So you guys just decide when and where you want to do next week's activity, which is really just planning out the project. And I should talk to you guys about the project specifically before next week. But Sophie, Chelsea, and Jorge, you're going to want to figure out if you want to actually find a time to meet, like at the Fresno State Library or some, Starbucks in Clovis, or if you guys want to do a video hangout chat and you decide the time and location. So what we have for this class is a project where you have to demonstrate a teaching style. And so I obviously want you guys to do linked learning. And what I did last semester, I think this was fun, so I would like to try it again, is that you guys all make individual pieces of videos. So each person makes a video, but then you guys have the videos linked together. I have to post this. There's a video of singing chipmunks, Christmas chipmunks, and so it asks, you have these hedgehogs. And so these hedgehogs, they roll, it's a cartoon. They roll out and they start to sing Christmas carols. And then you have to pick which hedgehog you want to sing. And the whole thing is fixed because it doesn't matter which hedgehog you pick. There's some reason that they drown in the lake or something that they never get to sing the song. But it's YouTube. So you make a YouTube video that links to another YouTube video, but with multiple choice. So I'm gonna, if you guys are up for that activity, it's a fun challenge for how you can each make videos that coordinate together. So you take your pieces and connect them all together. So you guys have to do some serious planning of what each person's part is, and each person films a part of the video, and then you guys link them together. So I hope that will be fun for you, and it needs to be about linked learning. It needs to demonstrate linked learning. Does anyone have any questions on that? I'd really like to see more action with today's meeting, or people talking to me. You can post the link to your collab notes. Do you guys know how to make them so anyone with the link can edit? Do you want me to show you how to do that? I like to make my stuff that way. I just make it anyone with the link can edit, and then everyone can access it when I post the link. Okay. Go ahead. Does that mean show how to do the notes? Yeah, I'll do it. Okay. So let me do a screen share. So just real quick, as I go to Google Drive, I click on New, and I click on Google Docs. And then I call it Week 5 Collab Notes. And then I push enter a whole bunch of times, like a whole bunch of times. And then I click on the blue share button. And then I usually do it this way. I click get a shareable link. And you'll see it says anyone at Fresno State can view. I don't want anybody at Fresno. I don't want to do that. So I click on here. and it gives me more choices. Anyone at Fresno State can edit. Well, some people use their Gmail. So I go down here to more. I want more choices. So I click more, and then I can say anyone with the link. So I check the second option. And then down here it says can view, I change it to can edit. And so now anybody can edit these notes. So I do is I use Control L or Command L on a Mac. Control L highlights the URL, Control C copy. And so then I'm just going to paste it into the Hangout chat. Just for fun, just so you can see how I can. Now, anybody who clicks on that link, I like to put it out on Twitter. In fact, let me do that. I'm going to do, okay, I'm going to do screen share. I do this all the time. Okay, so then I go to Twitter. This is a fake Alice Keeler account. Log out. Log in. Log in. Okay, this is my Twitter account. So I'm going to just put demonstrating Google Docs. Please jump in and give my free service teachers some advice about teaching. Hashtag CI149. Now that I put that out on Twitter, right, and because I said it as anyone with the link can edit, you can see somebody's cursors here. I've got an anonymous jackalope, and you can see all these animals at the top. When somebody joins a document, they join anonymously, and Google just gives you an anonymous, they randomly give you an animal. Right, the anonymous capybara. Do I have that? Let me open it for today's. Oops. Slash, yeah. Okay, so I just put the sample doc on the today's meet. If you want to type on it too. So it's some teaching advice. Teaching is not about the teacher. Design your lessons for student interests and student interactions. So I'd really love to see somebody else type on this document besides me. Usually my friends on Twitter come through for me. I'm going to post it again. Okay, so we'll see if anybody jumps in. Here we go. So that's not me. I'm not the anonymous Wolverine. This is just a random person on Twitter typing on my document. Okay, so that's one of my tricks that I do is I set documents anyone with the link can edit, and then it makes it really easy to collaborate with strangers or even people that I know because I don't have to worry about what account they're logged in as. People are giving me some advice. I love that we can work together using Google too. Always be consistent and fair with your students. I agree. I'm going to interject on that point. So I'm inserting a comment. I don't know if you can see the comment on the side here. Right. So I can insert comments on the side. So that's a nice feature of collaborative documents, and I encourage you to take advantage of that. Okay, so I'm going to stop the screen share. Okay, next thing on the agenda, number three. Number three is just a tech activity. So I try to design the first few activities to not need me so that people need to ask questions or while they're getting their blog post set up. So number three is just like if you hold down, if you're a PC user, if you hold down Control, when you click on a link, it opens in a new tab. So I just wanted you to practice doing that. There's nothing to do besides practice holding down Control when you click on a link. Does that make sense? Someone type yes in the today's meet or not really. Okay, so number four is to set up a Twitter account. Let's do that later. You can do that tonight, tomorrow. I'd like you to do it before Saturday if you can, because I want you to be able to reply to each other on Twitter, but we don't need to do that together right now. I mean, I'd like to, but I really don't want to keep you up super late. So we'll say number four you can save for later. Same for number five. You can do number five later. So number five is for you to just look at the list of quests and say, oh, hey, I've done that one, and then you share it so other people, so we learn from each other, right? Are there any questions on 4 or 5? Because I'll just let you do those later. Okay, so number 6, we were going to finish up the small group discussion. Let me get, you guys are so quiet on the today's meet, you're killing me. Okay, so I need to go to classroom. And the small group discussion was number 26. So if you could go to Google Classroom and find assignment number 26, there's a spreadsheet. I'm putting it online. And I use Control F to find, so I just put pound 026 into the search. Wait, do we not, don't we have number 26? Where's 26? Do I not have it on here? How'd you guys find it last week? Oh, there it is. I understand. So what happens is it won't find it unless you have it loaded. So sometimes you have to scroll way down before you can do Control F. Okay. Slides. Discussion. Screen share. And this. Why are these not loaded? Okay, there we go. So you want to be on this spreadsheet. So I'd like to see everybody on this spreadsheet. I'll put it in the today's meet. And we're on the Shift to the Common Core. I think we're on the Shift to the Common Core tab. So I'll give you a couple of minutes. You went to Google Classroom. We're doing agenda item number 6. You went to Google Classroom. You found number 26, and you're on the Shift to the Common Core tab of the spreadsheet. I'm just going to real quick run and get water so that you guys can get there, and then I'll be right back. It'll take me less than a minute, so go. Okay, I'm back. All right, good. And I see more of you in the document, so that's lovely. And so I'm going to do the slides. We're on the shift to the Common Core. And so you're going to pop in your thoughts. Let me on here. 26. There we go. Okay, we're going to shift to the Common Core. Let me find those slides. Common Core. Okay, so Common Core. Common Core should change how you teach. How you teach should look different than it did in 1980, and it should look different than the way that you were taught. We're looking to develop critical thinkers, so the Common Core shifts from students memorizing information to being critical thinkers who can apply and explain. Then I've got a Common Core infographic, so when we click here, you can see the infographic. And this is way too small to read from the Hangout, so if you see the link where it says link to slides, if you want to take a look at this infographic, that's better. So this just gives you some information about the Common Core if you're not super familiar with it. I'm not going to read it. And then the next one. So there are 8 mathematical practices for the Common Core. And honestly, those are good for all of you. So the first one is make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. So persevere in solving problems means you don't just do one math problem and go on to the next math problem. Is that it builds on itself. So you start a project or an activity, and then you figure out some information, then you get new information and you build on that, and then you get new information and you build it. It's multi-stage and over multiple days. What subject area doesn't do that? Even art teachers persevere in problem solving. You work on something over long periods of time, and then you learn more techniques and you add to it. So when you're looking at the standards to add to your lesson plan, very likely you can use that standard, make sense of problems and persevere in problem solving. Reason abstractly and quantitatively. I hope you're asking your students to reason and think about stuff. And they can do that in any class, not just math. And I really want to emphasize that these 8 mathematical practices are not for just math. So on the spreadsheet, by the way, you're just giving your ideas about how does your classroom look different in a Common Core classroom than a traditional the old way of doing it. Construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. That's not just in math. Don't you do that in English? Don't you do that in ag? That kids make a statement and then you do some peer evaluation, you critique what others say. These 8 mathematical standards are not about math, they're about critical thinking. So this is good for everybody. Model with math. You can do that in your classes too, because you use math in different there's no such thing as math day. You use it in context with something else. Use tools strategically. What that means is that you don't give a specific tool, like need to use a ruler and glitter. No, you give them a learning objective that's vague, and they figure out that they need to use a ruler and glitter, and they would justify, like, I need to use this because. So you give less specific directions and less specific tools, and let them figure out what is it that they need. Attend to precision, be precise. You can do that in any subject area. Look for and make use of structure. We ask kids to do that kind of stuff in every subject area. And look for patterns and repeated reasoning. Again, you even do that in English, right? You look for patterns in the reading structures and sentence structure, right? So the 8 mathematical practices, honestly, in your lesson plan, you should be able to list all 8 of them because they're about critical thinking. So I'm really passionate that we are all teachers of the math and ELA Common Core standards. So if you're a math teacher, if you're an ag teacher, if you're a science teacher, if you're an art teacher, you should be doing both the math and ELA Common Core standards. We're all responsible for that. So if you're not a math teacher, you're still doing the 8 mathematical practices. You're supporting critical thinking in your classroom. And if you're not an English teacher, those English standards are things like spells correctly and uses a colon. And we need to have our kids writing and reasoning and researching in every single class. And so those ELA standards are for you. You need to read them. So make sure you read the standards. I've got a little graphic here that you can kind of look at. I'm going to make this image a little bit bigger because I can't read what the little thought bubbles say. So Common Core, you want to challenge students so you don't just keep them busy, you make them care about it. So let me give you a math problem. A guy leaves at 2 o'clock driving 70 miles an hour. 3 hours later, his wife realizes that he forgot his lunch, so she drives after him at 90 miles an hour. At what time does she catch him? Which kid cares about that? And so that's one of the tricks, is to apply to model mathematics in a real-world context. And it's not just math, just model in a real-world context. Like, help the kids to care about it, to connect to their community. Instead of telling kids information, you guide them, you ask good questions, and then students come up with an opinion and defend it with research, with evidence. Defend with evidence. Research and analyzing is a big part of the Common Core. And then really taking a look at the world is different. How are we preparing kids for the world today and not the world that we were a part of? Because there's a statistic that says something like 65% of the jobs that your students will have do not exist right now. So if you could just add to the spreadsheet some ways that your classroom looks different from Common Core. So over the last 20 years, we've really not been asking kids to do deep critical thinking. We want them to do well on a bubble test. And so we've been focusing on memorizing facts. What a useless thing to do. You have Google and YouTube. Like, seriously. You know, should you spend your time in class going over and doing stuff that's available on Google and YouTube? You guys can respond to that in a variety of places. You can type on the spreadsheet, you can put it in the Today's Meet, or you can talk in the video chat. But I want to see your ideas. I want to see your ideas on the spreadsheet in particular. I love the idea of linked learning because it's giving kids a reason. Like, why am I doing this? It's so I can take care of animals. So you can be a better cook, or whatever your linked learning area is. I think it's so important. I mean, it's very Common Core to do linked learning. We've got to give kids a reason to care about what they learn. Definitely more group collaboration and student-driven. You've got to let your ego go. Teaching is not about you, and so I really challenge you at the end of each lesson is to ask students and ask parents, did this work for you? What ideas do you have? I don't know why we think that we are master lesson planners. I'm not a master lesson planner. I'm still learning all the time. So don't have so much pride. Ask for it. How would you have improved this lesson? I challenge you to ask that every single lesson. Ask the kids, how would you have improved it? And then do some of their suggestions. Your kids will be so grateful that their ideas influence the class. Solving problems, exactly. Students are supposed to think critically and analyze, solve real-world problems. And I'm going to add on to that If it is a real world problem, there is data to ask for and people to interview. Word problems are not real world problems. They're not real world questions, not real world activities. So you want to really find out how you can have your students do stuff like that. Collaboration between the students to show the reason behind the scientific method, how the scientific method benefits them in agriculture. Also need students to be able to use proper spelling and grammar. Totally. You need to be able to communicate clearly, right? I love you guys' thinking. It's really a shift to being student driven. Is that your kids are not just sitting there listening to info. They're finding it and they're doing stuff with it. You ask good questions. And you challenge their thinking with more questions. All right, let's go on to the next one. I don't want to spend all day on these. So the 4 C's. This is important. Every lesson should include the 4 C's. Communicate, collaborate, creativity, and critical thinking. So we're on the 4 C's tab on the spreadsheet. So one of the problems, I think, is that we take these words for granted as to what they mean, but I think they mean something different in a 21st century modern Common Core context. So I already said that. Include the 4 C's on all your lesson plans. So communicate. How do you communicate without talking? Communicate really means clearly communicate your ideas. It doesn't mean talk. And you can communicate, you can talk and just talk in circles and not clearly communicate your ideas. So on the spreadsheet, what are some examples of ways that students can clearly communicate ideas besides talking? So it says show links to YouTube and other sources. These are things we want the students to be doing, right? So they're supporting their ideas with evidence. Very Common Core. So if the students have some idea that they want to share, like these YouTube videos support what I'm saying. So I love Twitter. So collaborate. Have you ever seen preschoolers play? They play near each other, but they don't. This goes down with this one. Collaborate is not the same as cooperate. They play near each other, but they don't play with each other. And I think we see a lot of projects where it's a group project where you divide it up, like you do this part, you do this part, you do this part. That's not actually this, that's cooperating. That's not collaborating. Collaborating is when each person's work is reliant upon other people and you are going to communicate and talk and strategize, and there should be some amount of task switching. I don't know why that's so hard to say. If each person's not doing one part of the project, but you guys are really collaborating, working on all aspects of the project. So what are some examples of collaborating? Definitely should include continuous communication, because otherwise you're cooperating, you're not collaborating. Should be providing feedback on each other's work. It's super hot in my office. Round robins, continuous communication, jigsaw, challenging each other, give students time to talk to one another about issues or concerns, delegation of responsibility, it's never been doing one thing, fair and equal, not one-sided. And I really want to encourage that you, when you're doing collaboration, that it doesn't have to be equal. When I collaborate with people, I usually end up doing 90% of the work, but I really, really value the contributions that other people did. And in a 21st century context, how are you connecting globally? It is so easy to find teachers in another country, in another state, in another classroom on Twitter or social media. I bet you have Facebook friends, teacher Facebook friends, who are in a different state. And so you can have your students collaborate and work with those students. But how can you give them a global perspective that you collaborate with people in Canada, China, Norway? My husband teaches English, and he's collaborating with a class in Norway. Okay, creativity. I guess we skip a column. You got to understand, creativity is not art projects. It's not just, if everyone's art project looks the same, that's not creativity. It's not even doing art. It's creative thinking. So it could just be a creative argument. It doesn't have to be it shouldn't be a PowerPoint. That's definitely not creative usually. So how are you going to encourage students to be creative? One way to ensure that is to give vague directions that the end product looks different for each student. Like one student might do it in Minecraft, one student might draw, one student might write an essay or a poem. Like how can they creatively demonstrate their learning? Do not force essays. It's so true. When you give kids one option, no one choice is going to be good for every kid in your class. Provide different choices. Provide multiple choices. I love that you have your students compose their own music. That's fantastic. So critical thinking is not memorizing, and just because it's hard doesn't make it critical thinking. So that math problem I gave you earlier of the guy leaving, forgetting his lunch, that problem is really hard. It's really hard for my students. But it's DOK level 2. It is not critical thinking. It's following steps. If you're following steps, it's not critical thinking. So students have ideas and they defend them with evidence. Right? Create a political party and have them explain why it works well. Make predictions. So I see that you moved the political party one, but that could go under critical thinking too. It's not something that's obvious or preset, and you can't grade it off an answer key. Yeah, what might happen if? Those are good. Okay, let's move on. Elements of a lesson plan. You go on to the next tab. I just want to do these quickly. You want to have an anticipatory set, something that hooks students into the lesson. Like, why are they running down the hall to get to your class? This is the most important statement. It should engage prior knowledge. So something that they already, so if you're talking about cells, sometimes when you look at the mitochondria and you say it's like the battery of the cell, then you bring out batteries, you're trying to connect something they understand to what they're learning. Your lesson plan should have some sort of activity. What are they doing during the lesson? How they access information? What are they doing with the information? And I think this is really important, is to remember you don't teach a class, you teach a room full of individuals, so you have to provide different things for different people. Like, I had students who could not multiply. How are they supposed to do the quadratic formula? So make sure you have differentiation. Formative assessment is, how do you know the students are getting what you're teaching them? And do you have data to support that? If you ask students to give you thumbs up, thumbs down, that is formative assessment, but sometimes they lie. So try and do things that collect data. And then you should have some sort of closure. How do you bring the lesson to a close? How do you end it? You don't just wait for the bell to ring. And how do you make it student-centered so that the students are summarizing the lesson and not the teacher? All right, if anyone has anything to say about lesson planning, what do you think is important in a lesson plan? We're on the spreadsheet. Having pianos is a good reason to get kids to come to class. Valuing student voice is a great part of a lesson. I think I'm happy to see the transition away from it being my class, my rules, my assignments, to really caring about what the students care about. Student groups, absolutely. Focusing on learning objectives, that's huge. Yeah, change it up. Anything works for a few days, and then they're bored with it. Do something else. I love this, creating and communicating ideas with each other. I mean, when you're designing a lesson, ask, how are the kids connecting? I mean, you really want it to be about the students. Having students teach a lesson on a special interest, absolutely. Let the kids be the experts. Stop feeling like you have to know everything. Okay, let's talk about essential questions. Next tab. That's a couple of you are finishing up what you're putting. So on the essential questions tab, an essential question is a big question that drives the unit or lesson. It's not a quiz question. It should spark curiosity. Oh, I want to know that. And it's something that they can answer at the end of the lesson, not during the lesson. I mean, it should be a big question. It drives the lesson. If you're driving towards the question, it doesn't necessarily have to be part of the lesson. So my example is always, how would you jump over the Grand Canyon with a tricycle? Oh, well, I don't know. How would I jump over the Grand Canyon with a tricycle? So why don't you try, like, for a lesson that you're doing, what would spark interest that kids are like, oh, I want to be able to answer that. And you do the lesson and you give them the tools to be able to answer it at the end of the lesson. How many more gallons of rain will we need to continue to sustain the current produce of Fresno County? That's good. That requires a lot of research. I'm just wondering if it might be too specific. What party would you back in revolutionary Russia? How would you suggest the people go forward with their new government? So that is a question. Trying to decide if it's really an essential question, because the essential question should drive the lesson. It's not bad. Put it back. I'm trying to give feedback. Put the question back. How do morals and ethics play in our societal roles and our personal lives? Good. Does water boil faster at a higher altitude or a lower altitude? I'm trying to decide if these are hard. So, and there's definitely a lot of gray areas to something being an essential question. I would reword that to be, should you do your cooking at the top of Mount Everest or at the bottom of the Grand Canyon? Because you're trying to spark interest, right? And it's like, I don't know. And then, so what do I need to learn in order to answer that? So when you say, does water boil faster, you're kind of giving away the content of the lesson with that, kind of. Why are cells small? Okay. So you really, I mean, they're not bad questions, but you're also, remember, you're trying to like get kids to like, oh, I mean, like really spark their interest and think, I want to know the answer to that. That sounds really interesting. So why are cells small is a good question. You have a lot of things you have to learn to lead up to answer that. But try and think of how you could word it in a way that you market it better. Here we go. Right? This is what I'm talking about. These are hard to write. Like, they're super hard to write. I worked for Microsoft for a year where I was writing essential questions based on their picture of the day, and it would sometimes take me 3 hours just to figure out a good question. Like, they're hard. How many rubber bands does it take for bungee jumping so that the Barbie does not hit the ground from the top of the stairs? That's a great question. I want to know what that lesson is. I don't want to know how we're going to figure that out. And I want to emphasize your lesson doesn't have to talk about the essential question at all. So when I'm doing how would you jump over the Grand Canyon with a tricycle, I'm talking physics, I'm talking parabolas, speed, and I don't talk about the Grand Canyon, and I don't talk about the tricycle at all. It's just that students should be able to create a hypothesis, at least, and support with evidence their answer because they learned some information and strategies. Okay, is it efficient to extract salt from ocean water? Okay, so that's a good question. Now, how can we make it a really, like, attention grabber? Is it efficient to extract salt from ocean water? Is that because you want drinkable water? Efficient to extract salt from ocean. It's a good question. Just thinking, how can we upgrade it to be like the bungee jumping Barbie? I really shouldn't be spending this much time on this. I don't know. I'm having a hard time thinking of like how to upgrade it to being like jumping the Grand Canyon. But anyway, try and think of how to make it really like, oh my gosh, we're throwing Barbie from the top of the stairs. I totally want to learn that. So, you know, how you word your essential questions can be a really good hook to bring the students into the lesson. Let's go to learning objectives. Okay, so learning objectives are not the task. It's what do you want the students to get out of the lesson. You don't include the task in the learning objective, and it starts with a verb. What are students able to do or know by the end of the lesson, not what they're doing during the lessons? This is what makes it hard. People want to give assignments, not learning objectives. You got to let the assignment go. How can a kid demonstrate their learning in their own way? You got to focus on the learning objective, not the assignment. And then I don't want you to use the word understand. That's not the verb we're going to use. So you want to get a DOK chart. And when you look at the depth of knowledge chart, try and use some of those words. Graph, revise, apprise, critique, capitalize, predict, interpret, distinguish, use context clues, make observations, summarize. I have another slide. I have some examples. Compare a book with a non-literary figure. So you notice that I'm vague. I don't say what book, and I don't say what literary figure, so that it leaves room for creativity, that students could demonstrate that in multiple ways. I'm trying to decide, is this one a learning objective or assignment? You guys have some deep ones to go on. Let me give my next example. Memorize plant vocabulary. See, on this one, I feel like the construct evidence part is the assignment. Right? You want them to be able to argue points about ethics and morality in dystopian societies, and the assignment is they have to do that with evidence. Those are funny. Connect concepts from two composers, then compose four. Whoa. And add another slide. Right, add an extra slide. When you write your learning objectives, it should be one thing. So you shouldn't say the word and. I'm going to make an exception here for number 10 because it's ethics and morality. You're kind of putting those together. So I think that the arguing ethics one, if you construct or compile it, still that's the assignment. I think the arguing ethics and morality in dystopian societies is your learning objective. They could do that a lot of different ways. I think the constructing evidence is just extra information of how they do it or what the requirements are. So critique whether the Civil War was worth all its losses. That is an assignment. So the learning objective is not what they do during the lesson. This is so hard. Seriously, it is crazy hard. It's what they're able to know or do at the end. So I would say for this one, it would be critique. Critique Civil War consequences. Maybe something like that. You want, because there's a lot of ways that they could do this. Like, what are you really trying to get out of them? Correctly perform order of operations. Good. So you have them compare digestive systems. So here's an okay. So this connect concepts from two composers, then compose four measures that reflect their style. two different things, and it's really the assignment. So your learning objective, I'm going to move this one. Connect concepts from two composers is one learning objective. And so what I really like is it doesn't mention which composer. Sometimes we get hung up on specifics, like kids might be more interested in something else, and you're really just looking at them critiquing music, right? This last part's just compose music in a particular style. So I would use these. I would take this, I would break it down into two learning objectives. So that's fine. Here and contrast the style of two composers. Good. I think you can just use compare. You're contrasting anyway. Okay, so let's look at Webb's depth of knowledge. And so if you're familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, the Common Core is really, so I'm on the next tab, the Webb's depth of knowledge tab. If you're looking at Webb's depth of knowledge, excuse me, Bloom's taxonomy was about verbs and the words that helped you to start, you had a basic level of knowledge and building all the way to creating new knowledge. And DOK levels are really about critical thinking. So it's how much are you critically thinking, and it's not about the verbs. So that's something that's really hard because you can use the exact same verb. So if you create a list of math facts, that's DOK 1. Create directions. I'm trying to see if I can use the word create on all four of these. So DOK, let me just run through these really quick. DOK 1 is memorizing. There's no critical thinking. It is straight up memorizing. So when I ask kids to make, well, you know what? I'm going to ask you that in a second. DOK 2 is skill and concept. It definitely involves thinking, and they can be really hard, but the kids are not doing original ideas per se. I mean, they're following directions or following steps. Almost all your curriculum you've ever done is DOK 2. We have really focused on that over the last few years. So for me, 100% of my algebra curriculum was DOK 2. 100% of it was, and some of those were really hard. A task can be hard and still be DOK 2. If you can make a worksheet out of it, it's DOK 1 or DOK 2. DOK 3 is strategic thinking. You research and defend ideas and support with evidence. So let me try and think. Okay, so I just made a DOK using the word create for all 4 levels. So it's not about the verbs, because DOK 4 is extended thinking. It's original ideas, connecting learning to unrelated things, or applying your learning to a new situation, and you invent stuff. It's really hard to do DOK 4. So name the parts of the digestive system, DOK 1. Compare and contrast the digestive system. Design a survey to gather information. Ooh. So I think this designing a survey, because if it's DOK 3, they really should have to justify their reasoning, cite evidence. So I think that's DOK 2. These are really, really, really hard to do. I was tweeting a bunch of these yesterday on Twitter with other teachers, like veteran teachers, and we were having some good discussions. What year did Bach die? Good. Research 2 periods of paintings. So that could be 2 or 3. If they're just finding facts, that's definitely DOK 2. But if they make statements, right? If you can throw in the word support with evidence, you can take it up to DOK 3. Oh, wow. DOK 4, you need to include in there that they have to explain it. I mean, the thing is, it's not as much the assignment as what the kid does with it. So the kid could interpret the lesson. It depends on how much critical thinking the kid is doing. So if the kid's lazy and they just kind of like do something without really digging deep or challenging themselves, then for them it was a lower DOK level, even though for another student who put better effort into it, it's a higher DOK level. See, now this one might be, so identify the who, what, where, why, how of the individual. That could be level 2. If you tell the kids the who, what, why, where, how, if you lecture that and they tell it back to you, that's DOK 1. If you give them a book and ask them to identify those parts of the book, that's DOK 2. They have to think about it. Like even matching is DOK level 2. I think it goes there. Interpret images and objects to predict a person's place of origin. Oh, that's DOK 3. They're making predictions. Just throw in there, based on evidence, and you're solid. Predict, they're interpreting images and objects to make predictions. That requires some serious critical thinking on there, I think. Prove or disprove the class prediction. That's going to be DOK 3. I'm going to move that one. Prove or disprove the class prediction. So they're citing evidence. Citing evidence is really what we want students to be doing. That's DOK 3. DOK 4 is applying it to a new situation. Draw conclusions from class assessment. Good. Synthesize common themes with texts and supplemental resources. I understand that you're using the word synthesize, but they're not synthesize common themes. They're not coming up with new stuff. They're not extending their thinking. I think that's DOK3. What is a motif? Yes, if they're just memorizing. Name the planets in our solar system. Who shot Abe Lincoln? Good. Name 3 eons. That is probably DOK1. They're just repeating back. What improvements would you make to the ruminant digestive system to make it function better, and why? Support your changes with reasons it would make the system better. Yeah, that could definitely be DOK4, right? Because they're designing a new digestive system. Okay, this is good. Based on the understanding of the characteristics of classical and romantic eras, decide what era you believe Beethoven best fits in. DOK3, good. Okay, let's move on to the next one. You guys are doing pretty good with this. Just remember, it's really hard. And you're focusing on how hard is the kid actually thinking. Analyze and compare information from different sources is DOK3. We'll move that down here. So if you wanted them to compare, like I mean, if you gave them the sources, it's DOK3. If they researched the sources, then it's DOK4. Like, it could go either way. It really depends on how they got the sources. Because if you give them the sources, then they're citing evidence. They didn't have to sift through and organize information to decide what should stay and what should go, and then determining which sources were relevant. Invent a new sport and rules. Yep. Develop a board game. Could be. It could focus too much on the game task and not on... Board game is tricky. I'm going to highlight that one. Because it really depends on the questions and things that they do with the game. That could be DOK1 all the way up to DOK4. A board game is really a PowerPoint with plastic pieces. So be careful about that. Okay. Types of assessment. Okay, this is the last one. Types of assessment. We've got 2 of them. Oops, I went the wrong way. Formative assessment is what you do during the lesson or unit to see if your students are learning. It should change and form what you do next. Formative assessment quizzes should not go in the gradebook. I feel very passionate about that. The purpose of formative assessment is not to put something in the gradebook. The purpose is to see, like, did I do a good job teaching my lesson? And I'm going to tell you what, you're going to have more bad lessons than you have good lessons. So don't have so much ego to not let kids give you feedback. Ask for it. I really encourage you, ask every day. I just use a Google form. You guys see that's at the bottom of the agenda. And I read those, and I take it seriously, and I change what I do. So besides a quiz, how can you tell if a student understands the information is what I have on the spreadsheet tab. So the other type is you have formative assessment, and then the other one is summative assessment, which is like the test or project. This is where your DOK4 can really come in as your summative assessment, is you focus on DOK1, 2, and 3. And so they get the information, and then their summative assessment is the ability to do something with that information. But for formative assessment, what are some types of formative assessment besides a quiz? What are ways that you can tell if students are understanding? Sure, pair share, small discussion, absolutely. Kahoot. I hope you're all using Kahoot. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Just be careful because students will lie. They just don't want you to call on them. Games, absolutely. Exit slip, yep. Small performance tasks, you guys got it. These are all formative assessment. Listening in on group discussions. Anytime you actually look at their work. But seriously, it should change what you do. Otherwise, it's an activity. It should change what you do. Like, oh, a lot of kids miss this. I better do a different lesson. I better reteach this. I better find a different activity. Yeah, something with a clicker. Small whiteboards. Yep. Write something on the board. You guys are right on. Okay, guys, I think we've talked enough. So I'm going to go back to the agenda. I have some videos on learning objectives and DOKs, and I have an activity for you to do on Twitter, so you can do that later. I'd really like it if you did the Twitter thing in the next couple of days. You can look at I have some videos for the SAMR model, and then I've got a spreadsheet that you can do. You can do that later. Number 9, the lesson planning and assessment, we did that. We talked about them, so just skip that. And then number 10 is you should be doing a digital citizenship presentation with your group. So, does anybody have any questions? Sure. So the purpose of this is I'm on purpose being vague because I really want to see your reflection on how this works out. So there's a spreadsheet for you to pick a topic in the Google Classroom. So your group picks a topic. And so your group signs up for a topic, and then one person's going to make a Google Slides presentation and share it with the rest of the group. And then through the week, you guys are going to add slides, and you're going to do some research and find information on that topic. And guys, it should relate to teaching. Like, how does that topic impact? You have to teach digital citizenship. So how are you going to teach fair use? Like, what information does a teacher need to know about fair use? What information does a teacher need to know about Creative Commons? And so I want you guys to do that without meeting in person. So my learning objective is to collaborate, not in person, with the Google Slides. And it shouldn't be that long. It should be something that someone could easily go through, and you clearly communicate your ideas, and it's not just a mass of words. Does that help? You guys can jump in on the video chat too and ask me questions. How should we manage our reading assignment? So I try to mimic this class a little bit like teaching, so I know it drives some of you crazy, but I do it on purpose because I'm not trying to make a student out of you. I'm trying to make a teacher out of you. And as a teacher, there are things you have to do every day. Every day you have to do your attendance. And sometimes you have a meeting, like a special ed meeting, and you have to have your paperwork ready for the special ed meeting. But for the most part, you get to decide what you do when. You know what I mean? Theoretically, you can save all your grading until the 6-week grading period and turn that in. I wouldn't recommend it. That does not make you a good teacher, but you could do it. I know teachers that do it. So for a lot of the stuff in this class, I am trying to get you to understand that teaching is a lot. It's a lot. And you have to manage your own time. And so I don't have a lot of due dates. I have a due date on the digital citizenship presentation. I need it by next week because other groups are going to peer evaluate it. And then I need you to do like the Twitter activity where you tweet out learning objectives, because other people are going to reply with DOK levels. So we all kind of need to do that at the same time. So that's like attendance and special ed meetings. But the rest of it, you got to figure out when and how you're going to get it done. And you have that flexibility. Don't drown. If you put, it's a lot. Every week I have a lot. So if you put it all off, you're not going to be happy the last few weeks of school. If you keep up, the last few weeks are really cake. So the reading assignments, I want you guys to discuss, what did I say? You're going to discuss Teach Like a Pirate? Yeah. We're going to do some Teach Like a Pirate discussion next week, so you want to make sure you've read that. But you're supposed to do a one-page reflection. It's not due until the end of the semester. That work? Please complain. Any other questions? Post to the Google Plus community. I'm really good about checking it throughout the week. You know, as you have questions this week, post that. All right. If nobody has any questions, then I know it's super late. Good night. All right, guys.